I really hope I followed Huda's instructions correctly. Oh, yay. It worked. I think we're being live streamed.
Mhm.
Let's see.
Okay.
I think that's working, so that's nice. Hello, YouTube. And I'm also going to hit record here. Hi again to everybody who's joining. We are going to get started in just a moment. I'm going to drop a link to our agenda today in chat. Susan, would you mind adding the agenda to the Slack channel?
I would not. I was just going to try and make some more bullets for people. Let's see, Slack.
Okay. Let's see, go ahead and share my screen. I see Ryan is here. Excellent. Okay, so we should be seeing the call agenda. Alex, can you give me a thumbs up? Is that the case? All right, so we have people logging in still, it looks like, but I am going to go ahead and get started today. So if you are a fan of Wikidata or at all interested in the Wikidata Affinity group, you are in the right place. My name is Sarah Caston. I work at the University of Notre Dame, and I'll be facilitating today's session with Susan Wadowski from Harvard and Alex Jung from the University of Toronto. So thank you so much for coming. On our agenda here today, we provide some options for you to sign in if you care to share your name and affiliation. But otherwise, we're just going to get started and dive into our session. We're going to do about 20 minutes of introduction into what is Wikidata, who are we as the Wikidata Affinity group, what can you get involved with through this affinity group, and then hopefully by about 1:20, we're going to turn it over. We have several people who volunteered to share round 2 of what is your Wikidata passion. So what are your works in progress? What are you really excited about? What ideas are you mulling over or trying to implement? We want to keep this as fun and chatty and inspirational as possible. So let's just dive in, shall we? So we've heard a lot about Wikidata so far this week. I think we've been seeing Wikidata related sessions almost every day of the conference so far, but to kind of take us back to basics of what is Wikidata for those who are new. Wikidata is an open knowledge graph that acts as kind of a central structured data storage for all the projects in the Wikimedia ecosystem. So all of the different language versions of Wikipedia, Wikimedia Commons, everything Wiki kind of ties back into the Wikidata database. For kind of our purposes, it's the open aspect of it is really useful. And so it provides a data editing and creation interface. There's an infrastructure for organizing projects and facilitating communication. We have community-driven, flexible data models. There is a Sparkle query service and numerous tools and gadgets and scripts in order to work with and play with Wikidata. So the Wikidata Affinity Group was founded under the LD4 umbrella in 2019 by Hillary Thorson. Hillary's not here today, but she's always with us in spirit. And over the course of these last 4 years, we've highlighted the variety of ways that Wikidata can be useful for librarians, archivists, anyone working in cultural heritage, scholarly communications, or research more generally. And so some of the facets we've explored, linked data as Wikidata as a linked data training ground. So an ability to get your feet wet without needing a big complicated technical infrastructure set up in your local environment. Wikidata as a database and a technical infrastructure for your structured data projects. Wikidata as kind of a central aggregator of unique identifiers, bringing together disparate data sources. Wikidata is a way to connect our kind of siloed library and archival data to the broader internet. And our group in particular is a really nice, welcoming forum to discuss some of the challenges of working with Wikidata. So there are certainly a number of technical, ethical, social kind of implications of working with Wikidata, and we try to provide a community environment in which to kind of navigate those effectively together. So I'm going to navigate to a few different screens here. We have our main kind of web page, web presence set up here on this Wikidata project page. Many of you may be familiar with this, but we offer some of the rationale and our kind of standing set of links. We're obviously also very active on the LD4 Slack space. And this site also kind of hosts our repository of Affinity group calls. So this is about 4 years of programming now. We are on a bit of a summer hiatus from hosting our group calls, but we typically have them every other Tuesday opposite the Discovery Affinity group. And basically, if you're at all interested in Wikidata or libraries, there is something here for you. We've amassed a really wonderful archive of presentations and speakers and discussions. And if you haven't looked through this backlist for a while, please take a look sometime. We also host Wikidata working hours every other week. So it's a great opportunity to come together, build skills by participating in projects that we organize for you, or if you just want some company and have some time blocked up on your calendar to work with Wikidata, Wikidata working hours are for you too. We have our, oops, looks like we haven't updated yet, but we have our next Wikidata working hour this coming Monday. We'll continue updating our community infrastructure. And so I think that'll be a fun time. I think Joe Sarah called it a wonderful and horrifying project, was it? I can't remember the exact phrase, but yeah, we have a lot of work to do and we would love your participation on Monday. Also want to highlight, if you are just getting started with Wikidata, we have this wonderful Practical Wikidata for Librarians page that provides a really nice kind of overview of how you might get started working with Wikidata and what tools and resources are available that could be of interest to you as a library person. Let's see. One of the things that we also do under the aegis of our Affinity group is kind of interface with the broader Wikidata and Wikimedia communities. So there are literally like dozens of different projects and communities that you can get involved with. Here is our kind of full list of wiki projects within Wikidata. You can kind of drill down here and find a huge range of interesting things going on in Wikidata. And we also kind of wanted to highlight some of the GLAM specific wiki project pages for anyone looking for inspiration or to jump in and get started on something. Navigate back to our agenda for a second. And then also kind of with regard to the fact that we are kind of part of this broader Wikimedia community, we provided some links to Wikidata Telegram groups if you want to get involved in those forums and chat with a more a broader community of people who are interested in Wikidata. And then there are also some really interesting conferences coming up. Wikimania and Wikidata Con, I believe, are respectively in Singapore and Taiwan this year. But they will also have an online component for anyone who's looking to participate in those. And then the wiki site community, I think, is especially interesting for anyone here who's maybe interested in scholarly communication. The wiki site community has kind of facilitated a lot of the additions of scholarly metadata to Wikidata, and so on and off, but very very important related community to our interests. Without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen here and then pass it over to Ryan to introduce the Wikibase working hour.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. So I will just be brief and I'll share my screen kind of back to the, oh, I guess, hold on. There's no screen sharing, so I don't know if you want to, would you be able to enable me or make me a co-host?
I will make you a co-host. 1 second, let me find you.
So while Sarah's making me a co-host, I'll just briefly. Oh, great, thanks. All right. And now, oh, there it is. Okay. All right, so this, I just have up the page. It's linked on the agenda as well. So the Wikibase working hour started just over 2 years ago in early 2021. There was a group of librarians that were interested in Wikibase, which is sort of the software underlying Wikidata. And it's available for download and installation locally or on a server. And there's even a hosted version called Wikibase Cloud. And there's various reasons why libraries, archives, and museums might be interested in using Wikibase instance rather than directly contributing to Wikidata. I won't get into too many details, but one that has always jumped out at me is local authority control, especially for certain entities in maybe special collections where there isn't a lot of distinguishing information. So you can't really necessarily tell people apart in an archive collection if you don't have a lot of information. But at any rate, that's just one example. Another example of what I think a lot of the original planning group was interested in had to do with like just general linked data, which is, of course you get in Wikidata as well, and playing around with multilingual metadata through Wikibase with, as a kind of proof of concept for what could be done with your local systems. At any rate, so the Wikibase working hour, we historically met on sort of, or had programming on a monthly basis. And like the Wikidata Affinity group, we are taking a summer hiatus. But if you are interested in learning more about Wikibase, we have our Pascals and recordings for most of our sessions are available on our tab of the Wikidata Affinity group project page. And this includes some information about how you can get started with Wikibase. So we have sort of a configuration session, and I think there's a follow-up one as well. And so you can check out those videos if you want to find out more. And yeah, I think we are also very much open during our summer hiatus. If you have programming ideas, feel free to email the group and I think the convener's email. You can either just send it to the Slack, or there is an LD4 Wikidata coord at googlegroups.com email address that you can also send ideas to. We'd be happy also to have folks join the planning group. I myself am probably stepping down as chair shortly. Jim Hahn from the University of Pennsylvania is slated to take over as the chair, but yeah, so there's opportunities if you are interested in helping plan those sessions. Right. And I think that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Ryan. Alex, you're up.
Sweet. Hi, everybody. Gonna go do the whole screen share thing, right back to volunteer roles and how to get involved. And Ryan actually gave us a great overview of how it might work for Wikibase working hour. It's pretty similar for the Wikidata end as well. But before we get more into the logistics of like how you might get started, brief touching base on like why do this? Just because, you know, especially if you're new to the group, you might be thinking like, I don't know, I just kind of like want to take your time, take my time, kind of get, you know, my feet wet and then see if I want to volunteer. That's totally fine. But wanted to put the invite out kind of first and foremost. And while I'm talking, I'm just going to invite, like, I see a whole lot of folks in the call right now who've been involved in coordinating this in some capacity or other. If you could just drop a note in chat for like why you personally decided to do it, then would love to hear. So I'll just keep that going in chat. But like I can speak for myself in terms of like why do this. Like it's been really great to like work with a lot of different people to learn different aspects of organizing community around Wikidata, because we all value community resources, right? I think, but it always takes a lot of effort to keep this stuff going. So the more hands we have, the more fun it is a lot of the time. I've learned a lot even from like spreadsheet guru, that is Sarah. Susan just has like fantastic presence, for example. And just working together is like a total joy a lot of the time. So I wanted to put a word out in terms of why do this. And then in terms of the finer logistics, like here are some key tasks. So for the group calls that happen, we might take notes. For example, Mary, who's I think also on the call, takes like amazing notes. And something as seemingly small as like note taking can go a really long way in terms of helping us keep good documentation going forward. So taking notes is like a way that you can contribute. Organizing and facilitating group calls, kind of like we're doing here right now. Working hours as well, like, and working hours, we've had these like summer fall series that have been fantastic for people who are just getting started and starting to like learn to go through a whole project kind of beginning to end. And because we're coordinating together, like meeting to figure out how we're going to organize group calls together, working hours together, and talking about other fun stuff, like for example, conferences like this, or like past notes and recordings, making them easily accessible. So all of these are tasks that we at some point need to cover. So what does that look like in terms of roles? Any aspect of that, if you feel drawn to trying something new, you can probably find in some version, even if it's not listed here, that's okay. Like you can just contribute exactly in that way. I won't go through the whole thing. I can have you look over it in your own time, but I'm briefly going to point out again, because I talked about the key tasks. If you are drawn to like, oh, I want to try taking notes and helping out in like this specific way, that you can try that as, for example, note taker. We do a lot of event communication. So if you know of a couple of lists where you want to like pass on the info so that more people attend, you can do that as event communications organizer. You can obviously put together working hours and group calls as coordinator. So these are some things that I wanted to put out there in terms of the role descriptions. And finally, how to get started. Come to a coord meeting. We have monthly coord meetings. It's second Monday, 45 minutes only. So it's actually a pretty neat, solid time investment, just like pretty boxed up. It's not going to take up too much of your time. And it'll start at this time. If you're looking for your local time, then click the link and it'll send you to the timestamp. We also have a Slack channel, so you are welcome absolutely there as well. You can take a gander and see what we're talking about. See if we're a friendly crowd, just kind of like spot us a little bit. And finally, more details are always in the section that's usually at the bottom of the agenda that says help us organize the affinity group. If you click that, it'll take us all the way down here. And that's all I have to say.
Thanks, Alex.
Alex.
So I'm going to talk about the working hour series, but first I'm going to just talk for a second about, Sarah already showed you our working hours tab, but I'm just going to talk for a second about what Hillary and I have been putting together for the last few years. We have 2 working hours per month. We alternate between Mondays and Fridays, and we have like slightly different afternoon times to allow for the most attendance. About 2 to 4 times a year, we do a basics session where we introduce adding items to Wikidata from scratch for anybody who's completely new. And I bet we would always do one of those on request if anybody was really interested. We also sometimes piggyback on one of our group calls that features a tool or a workflow, and we ask the presenter to lead a practical hands-on working hour session. Those can be really great. And sometimes a project leader will demo their project workflow and engage participants in adding to their project work. Krista has done that with us a couple of times, I think. And it's always really fun for everybody to see how somebody puts together a project. It inspires everybody to put together their own. And of course, I told Hillary I would add this. When we have nothing else to do for a working hour, we do structured data on commons with a cheesy holiday theme, which is always fun as well. So I'm going to show our working hour series page from last year. This was the first time we thought of trying this, and let's see if this works. Can you see my screen? Okay, good. I'm going to try getting rid of this silly bar. There. Okay, so we had a data set that we were using that we got from the Cooperative Children's Book Center at the University of Wisconsin, and it had to do with children's book authors from diverse backgrounds, and we got permission from the book center, and we decided to do different themed hours as a series. So we started with cleaning up the data, then we did reconciliation. We created both author and publisher and work and edition items, all 3, for the books in the list. And so we tried to do this in a very sort of methodical way. So it ended up in a way being kind of a whole course in how you can work with data and Wikidata in a methodical way, going from cleaning up the data to visualizing it. And we found out during the series that we had to add a couple of extra sessions. We learned a lot from trying to do this series, and we still actually have data that's left to be worked on. So sometimes also when we don't know what to do for our working hour, we just ask people to work on that. But it was really big success. We had volunteers from around the world and who helped us with behind the scenes and with leading and co-leading sessions. And it was really very popular. And so we decided to try it again this year. This year, we are going to, and I'll put a link for this page in the chat as well. This year, we decided to try another data set, but we couldn't get permission from the people who owned it this time. So Alex Wong, who's here, and Hillary and I decided that we were going to build our own data set this time. And so we're going to try doing that with Zotero and also with some web scraping and try some different methods for gathering the data. And then we are going to, and I think we're going to be doing this on library and information science papers. And then we have a set, again, another set of themed sessions that we'll start with things like reconciliation and Alex, if you think of something I've forgotten in terms of a theme that we might not have tried last year, you're welcome to chime in as well. But we are in the process of planning the series now. It's going to start in August, and we have gotten many volunteers from around the world this time. So we are working on our first volunteer meeting, and I wanted to also show you that we have a form for volunteers, which I will give you the link for as well. And if you're interested in volunteering, we would love for you to fill in this form for us as well. So here's our, oh yes, everyone in meeting. Okay, so here's our volunteer form. And here is our series page from last year. Okay. And so anyway, we're excited. We hope that we've learned some good lessons from last year, and we want to make this series even better and involve more and more people. So please also, so fill in the form, but you can also write to us at our LD4 coord Google Groups address, which I will put into the chat after I stop sharing everything. And ask if you have any questions, or you can ask us in Slack, always in our LD4 coord channel. I think that's probably everything. Let me just make sure.
Susan, I think Daniela needs to head off, and she was one of our volunteer speakers, but I don't know if we
let
can
me stop talking then. Please go ahead.
press the mic.
Thank you,
Thank
Susan.
you. Yeah, thank you, Susan. Daniela, would you like to share what you're working on?
Yeah, so I've been introduced to Wikidata about 3 years ago, and since then I've been involved in several Wikidata projects. I'm gonna talk about the two most recent projects. With a couple of colleagues at the University of Notre Dame's libraries, I have been working on a project with the goal of adding archives at property to Wikidata entities for selected individuals or organizations that have corresponding archival descriptions in our archive or special collections. By adding new statements to Wikidata entities, by enhancing or creating a new Wikidata entities, our aim is to link our finding aids to this data and make our special collections more discoverable online. One of the most exciting aspects of this project is that it will allow for an aggregation of information about a single creator's archives, which have been dispersed or distributed among several repositories. We can also identify where material has been geographically dispersed by displaying the data on the map. The data and relationships created are impactful, yet the process to contribute this meaningful description is fairly simple and universally accessible. For example, a small museum or historical society, even one with paper finding aids, could resurface their collections for discovery alongside those of very large prominent institutions. And then they can promote this archival collection in a vast international database, which means that Wikidata and utilization of the archives at property can serve as a powerful supplement to discovery systems already in place. The other project I am involved with aims to shed light on the significant contribution of women printers during the hand press period, As you may know, printing has a long and fascinating history, and women have played a vital role in the industry since the beginning. However, the name of and achievements of female printers has been overlooked or forgotten over time, and our project seeks to resurface their stories. Women printers have been largely ignored and under-researched for various reasons. They often did not sign their names to the books they produce or designated themselves as the heir or wife of the master printer, although many of them were managing a large and well-established printing shop. Additionally, the archival documents related to their work are limited and difficult to find. There has been instances where the name of a female printer was transcribed as a male name or was incorrectly designated as a male member of a family of printers. So our first step was to identify sources of names and information about these printers. We are now adding new entities to Wikidata and enhancing or correcting these existing entities. Printing was in many cases a family business, so an important future step will be to link this name to the names of other printers, link these names to the work they produce, and add identifiers. Many organizations maintain unique identifiers for people and works, and we see the potential of Wikidata as a management system that pulls these identifiers together into one location. As I said earlier, it is a work in progress, and we ran into a few issues along the way, but we see every challenge as an opportunity to refine our data model and our process. And I think that we've been successfully in resurfacing the name of these women printers and their valuable contribution to printing. It has been a fascinating learning experience, and we've been receiving support from the Wikidata community. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Daniela. I'm sorry to have cut into your time.
No worries, I have a class that starts in 1 minute, but
okay.
I'm glad you gave me opportunity to tell my story. Thank you.
We really appreciated hearing about it, and we really appreciate everyone who signed up for our open mic. I'm going to call on Krista next. I'm just going to say that we, I don't know if Sarah said this already, but we were hoping to start wrapping things up by about 1:50 because we want to give people time to get to the Discovery Affinity Group session, which is directly after ours. So I'm going to ask Krista to start talking now, and I will keep going in order. Thank you so much. Go ahead.
Okay, I will try to talk fast, and hopefully I've had enough caffeine to do so. So yes, first a shout out to this Affinity group, because much of what I've learned for the projects that I do, I've learned from this group. So thank you very much. I would still be adding everything manually if it wasn't for you all. So my main Wikidata passion is helping to fill in what I see as a large content gap in religious and theological studies, whether that means working on my own or helping others who are interested in that subject area to build their Wikidata skills so that they can contribute as well. So one of my big projects in this area, and this one is largely on my own, is Wiki Project Christian Hymns, which I'll try and talk and put stuff in the chat at the same time. And this came out of the PCC Wikidata pilot a couple of years ago. So yes, I mostly do this on my own time. I've been adding and enhancing items for composers, hymn writers, hymn tunes, hymn texts, and the different combinations of those texts and tunes, because they can be swapped around depending on how they fit together. A big challenge I face is scope creep. I first started by working on one contemporary Presbyterian hymnal, and then when I discovered that my data emphasized hymnody from the United States, the United Kingdom, and Germany, I then added a hymnal with Asian hymns so that I could diversify the data I was working with. Since then, I keep finding so many different interesting topics in hymnals that I pretty much work on anything that piques my interest, which is a lot. And so my inability to stop this scope creep kind of makes the project unwieldy, but a lot of fun. So I have my hand in a lot of different little pies, but it's all related to hymns, music, poetry. Yes, there's a lot to work on. So recent activity in the project includes adding relationships among a group of 19th and 20th century British composers from the Royal College of Music, such as Gustav Holst, Ray Vaughan Williams, and Charles Villiers Stanford. A lot of them worked together or taught each other and were also involved in hymnody while they were involved in composing traditional classical music as well. So now, because of those connections, one can see how some of them group together in their involvement in British hymnody of the time period. Also, an area of interest is highlighting the work of women in hymnody, such as Catherine Winkworth, who I will put in the chat here. She brought German Reformation hymnody into Victorian England and the present through her tremendous work of translating from German into English. I've only added a handful of her translations so far, and I also need to add all of the German originals. But yes, it's been fun getting to know about her work as well. Also completing a small collection of songs from Africa, such as from Zimbabwe, Togo, and Angola, and involving languages such as Zulu and Shona. I'll put the link to that collection here. And then also beginning work on a global hymnal that includes multiple translations per song. So yes, I've been having fun figuring out translations and all of this. So yeah, those are some of the pies I have my hands in right now. Who knows what more will crop up as time goes on. Some data visualizations that have come out of the project so far. A map of birthplaces of hymn writers, composers, and translators in the project. And then country of origin for hymn tunes, texts, and instances. And sorry for the weird duplication in chat. I'm copying and pasting from OneNote, which does weird things. I don't know why. And then also a Histropedia timeline of hymn writers and composers. This one's color-coded by religion, but you could change it for various other categories for faceting. And then my favorite is kind of the granddaddy of all of them. This one's just a link to a graph of how everything fits together in the project. It takes like 2 hours to really let all the connections kind of sort themselves out. So yeah, it's rather unwieldy, but it's kind of fun because there you see the patterns of how all these things work out when people have been working together in certain time periods. You just see those at a glance. So challenges to tackle in the future. What to do with Wikipedia? I heard something similar in the video games presentation the other day, that this was a problem, not just for me. So in Wikidata, I'm working with a fairly granular data model that reflects at least some of the nuances of musical and language variations in hymns. I'm not even covering all of them, but trying to get at least at some of it. Wikipedia articles often talk about hymns at a very high level. In one article, it discusses, say, the text and translations, along with all possible tune pairings. And then those Wikipedia articles are then attached to a corresponding Wikidata item that includes statements about the hymn as published in various hymnals of various languages. However, the data model that I'm working with in Wikidata separates out these hymn elements and has items for tunes and their adaptations, text and their translations, and then all the various combinations of these translations and adaptations and all of that. So it doesn't quite fit with how Wikipedia is handling it. I also know that, for example, German and Swedish hymnals are not using the same languages for the same hymn, but the same Wikidata hymn item is linked to hymnals in multiple languages, in part because of that Wikipedia article. I haven't figured out what to do with that so far, and that's usually with the more well-known hymns. This is a problem because there aren't Wikipedia articles on, say, the hymns coming out of Africa and Asia, which that should change as well, but Wikipedia is kind of out of my wheelhouse right now. Another challenge to tackle in the future.
Krista, do you want to let other people have a chance to talk? There's a lot of people who need to talk.
Yes, I'm almost done.
Maybe you could wrap it up now even, because there's about 6 more people who need to talk in 15 minutes.
Oh, okay. Yes, I can do that. I can just stop on the on those challenges right now. So, yep, we can do that. Others can go ahead.
Thank you so much, Krista. I think that was some very impressive and valuable fast talking, and I really enjoyed it. We will keep going. If we can't get through everybody, we'll have another call where we have Wikidata Passions and everybody can talk, because this is one of our favorite formats. So I'm going to ask Joe to talk, if you don't mind. And
yep. Hello, everybody. I in some ways it's nice to follow Krista because I have much less to talk about and nothing to share. So I started using Wikidata probably 5 years ago for repository related things, specifically faculty identifiers. And that has sort of moved into all repository related things, and all internal and external applications are now really more and more based on Wikidata because it's easy, really. And I think anybody who's had a project knows that the hardest and biggest step of any project is the data preparation. And so I probably have like a dozen projects where I am preparing the data, but haven't done anything in Wikidata yet. And it turns out that like those have been very useful in unrelated projects, or also when we have student workers who need projects. Like, how great is it to have somebody do that? And I feel like we do hear a lot about Wikidata because it's approachable and there are endless paths. So for me, like, I just kind of wander around virtually anywhere I go and encourage people to just peek into Wikidata for whatever they're working on. And one of the reasons that I think it's so great is, regardless of your actual interest in Wikidata, it touches everything. If you want to learn about OpenRefine, Wikidata is a good place to do it. Python, Google Sheets, and Excel, like, you can improve all of those skills, and Wikidata can be your sort of target. Same with Sparkle, Wikibase, data modeling, sort of anything that you want to do that's not related to Wikidata, you can find a Wikidata related path. And I would say generally, one of my favorite things about the whole community, aside from specifically the LD4 community being awesome, is that, no matter how good or skilled you are at something, there's always something nothing about, and that you can always ask other people, and people are so happy to share whatever their skills are. So that's my thing. I hope everybody else has some time to talk about their stuff.
Thank you so much, Joe. And you are always very generous with sharing your knowledge. And one of the best things about this whole enterprise is that whatever we know links with whatever everybody else knows. So I'll let Mara speak next.
Thanks, Susan. Hi, everyone. My name is Mara Kalin. I'm a catalog and metadata librarian at Beinecke Library at Yale University, and I'm also the current metadata lead at the Black Bibliography Project. And in that, I have a use case for Joe's point that Wikidata touches everything. So the Black Bibliography Project is actually a wiki-based project, and it's dedicated to creating a queryable database of bibliographic metadata for early African-American print. Part of the project's scholarly intervention is that we use linked data to elevate networks and communities of print culture. So that process necessitates authority control. While our project uses a bespoke data model rather than Wikidata, we rely on Wikidata as an easy way for us to create or enhance external authorities for underdescribed creators. We held a Wikidata working hour on this actually in early June, where Wikidata items were created for over 2/3 of the authority-less creators on our list. So that was really helpful. But by linking agent items in our Wikibase instance to their Wikidata identifiers, which we can create if we need to, we also gain access to the host of biographical data about the creators that will then get added or has been added already to the Wikidata items, without pulling our focus and the focus of the researchers in our project from the bibliographical details of the text that our data model was built to capture. Additionally, Wikidata is a really accessible entry point to linked data. It was for me, and has been a useful training ground for the graduate fellows and project staff to get used to what Wikibase entry will look like, as well as how to think about the sort of ethically thorny questions of description that may be new for people who are not in the library field, particularly surrounding gender, race, etc. So I'm really interested moving forward and continuing to think about how we can leverage the energy behind Wikidata, the accessibility of the platform, and the depth of metadata within it to enhance our more tailored wiki-based project. So yeah, that's what keeps me excited about Wikidata.
Thank you
Back
so
to
much,
you, Susan.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. John is next.
Sure, and I'll try to be quick. I'm at the University of Pennsylvania Libraries, and I'm mostly dealing with Wikidata in terms of a project we're working on here called the Deep Backfile Project. That's where we're documenting the copyright status of serials that are owned by our libraries, and to find out to what extent they can be digitized and shared with the world. We had a big crowdsourced thing of mostly people in the Penn libraries starting in 2020. We are still digesting the last of that. I think we're in the last 15% of their 8,000 serials that they researched. And we've been basically creating JSON-based linked data and linking it into Wikidata. So most of the data is actually outside of Wikidata, but it's linked in. The project, as has been going on there, has been growing in scope and potential applications. So we've been using Wikidata, for example, to also identify serials on HathiTrust that potentially they can open up that they've already digitized, for example, from the American things. We've also tables on the serials that are documented in English Wikipedia. And while the copyright data itself is not in Wikidata, we still have suggestion forms that people can use to basically contribute data to the project, which we'll link in. We're also looking to potentially add some of that data more directly to Wikidata. In particular, we have some data on rights holder context. So if you find an article by somebody, say like, Ernest Hemingway, who controls the Hemingway estate, for example, there is a existing database for that right now. What I'd like to do some work on basically introduce some properties so we can link it to some other databases such as rights and such like that. And I've also noticed that Wikidata conventions themselves have changed in the 3 years of the project. So being able to stay on top of what the current best practices are is very useful. And this group is very much appreciate the expertise in this group for all things Wikidata related. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, John. We've proved that this group is not only accommodating, but it can talk at 3x speed. Jarmo, you're next.
Okay, I can't share my screen, can I? I would need to be a co-host. Well, I was hoping that I could just show a couple of screenfuls. Is it possible? Can you set it up? Or
You should be able to share your screen now.
okay. Okay. So some of you might know that I used to work with the General Finnish Ontology 2 years ago for over a year and a half, and I was updating mapping the ontology concepts with Wikidata, and I think I uploaded about maybe 15,000 of the 30,000 concepts. So now we have more links to Wikidata than to LCSH. Thesaurus. But my current project is involved with this. This is the Finnish performance of music platform of performance of different kinds of musical instruments. There's a database of about 1,200 instruments, and I have been mapping these to Wikidata using this property, and so I have mapped now about 1,100 of them. So there's about over 100 which is controversial, which I have not been able to map, and that's why I set up projects in our GitHub where I have put up some issues about the concepts, and anyone can come in and discuss which is correct and which is not. Should something be split or not split? And then we would be able to map to Wikidata again to the correct instrument. And sometimes I have had to create several new instances of instruments because they were not in Wikidata at all. And I used for finding information about the different instruments, I scraped up this kind of a Wiki Sparkle search, which gives me a list of all the instruments which are, or all the items which are called instruments. And then I have the identifiers which are available. So there are lots of instruments which do not have labels in Finnish or English. And some of them have, and then I can find these instruments which have identifiers in all the different databases. So this is kind of helpful to find, because I was trying to find the labels in different languages. And if you look at the items here, there are lots of entry terms, but there's no information about the language. So I was trying to identify the language of which languages. So this is German, and this is German. Some of them are Italian, some French, Spanish, all kinds of, and there are instruments from all over the world. So there are lots of rare instruments. So later on, I'm hoping to find other people who know about the instruments and try to help me to map this. And the idea is to create a new database which will have similar solutions as we have for our places. Is that when you look at the item, we have an addition here where you can see the same item in Wikipedia, and also if there's a coordinate, you can see it on the map. So I was hoping that we could develop this kind of addition to the instrument database, so you could see the image of the instrument from Wikipedia or Wikimedia Commons. And then if there's an area where it's from, you could see it on the map. So, but this is a volunteer project. I'm working off and on, not very actively at the moment, but if someone is interested in this kind of work, I'd be happy to discuss more.
Thank you, Jarmo. Thank you so much. And as you can see, one of our great passions for Wikidata in this group is for musical themes. And
right.
We have Paul, who is also in that vein.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, I'm Paul Bethke. I work at the Iowa City Public Library. As part of our institutional goal, we like to support local things, and local music is one. We've actually been adding that to our catalog and make a streaming audio service for our local musicians. So I thought we need to broaden out that scope and get into Wikidata. So I picked a few select people to start with. One is Dave Zolo, who some people might know. He's gone kind of regional. Another is Greg Brown, who's even bigger. He was on NPR on some shows years ago, but he's still pretty famous in the area. It's kind of hard. There's a lot of details. These guys are involved in many other bands with many other people, and that's true of the whole local scene. In a word, it's pretty incestuous. You could have one person about 5 different bands, and they overlap like a ridiculous visual. I don't even imagine what it looked like, probably just a color blur. Anyway, it's been gestating for about 3 years. Local projects at work have kind of taken the fore, so I've kind of pick it up, set it down, pick it up, set it down. So my point now is to kind of narrow down on particular elements to fill in and then backfill later, and that's about it.
Wow, I don't know how we did that, but we did it. Thank you to everybody so much for your contributions. And again, I know we would love to highlight any and all of these projects anytime on one of our group calls. And I just want to thank everyone who came today so much. You are all part of this really amazing community, and we're all going to keep doing incredible things and sharing information with each other. We want to encourage everybody to go to the Discovery Affinity group session that's right after this, and also to the art and design sessions and rare material sessions tomorrow. I think they're both tomorrow. I don't think there's any other affinity groups, but if there are, please give them some love. And thanks to Sarah and Alex for this amazing meeting.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. As we mentioned, we have our next Wikidata working hour this coming Monday. You'll see announcements for that in our Google group and over Slack. And then, as Alex mentioned, we will also have our monthly Wikidata co-facilitator coordination meeting this coming Monday as well. That'll be at 4 p.m. Eastern time. I hope you join us at either of those events, and otherwise, we hope to see you at the upcoming Wikidata Working Hour series. Alex, any parting words from you? Alex has declined his opportunity to speak. Thank you so much to everybody who spoke. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Alex. Enjoy the rest of your conference, everybody.